everyone, my name is Sarah, and today we're going to be learning about the history of lollipops. So, how many of you guys like candy? How many of you guys like sugar? How many of you guys like bright colors? Okay, well, if you like any one of those three things, then you might enjoy lollipops. So it's the kind of candy that you put on a stick and you lick it. It's simple, it's good, it's colorful, it's wonderful. So some of you might have memories of eating lollipops when you were a kid or while you were at school. But actually the history of lollipops apparently goes back way further than I actually thought. So today we're going to learn all about the history of lollipops and what it has to do with cavemen and ancient Egypt and London. So pretty fun stuff. Let's take a look. All right. A lollipop is a popular type of hard candy on a stick that is enjoyed by sucking or licking. They come in various shapes and flavors. So if you look right here, there's this very cute little girl and she is licking a lollipop with her tongue. She's smiling. I assume she's probably happy because she's eating candy. Yeah, it's so cute. Like the lollipop and her outfit even match. But yeah, so I'm sure all of you have seen a lollipop before. I know I've definitely seen them in Korea. So it's just hard candy, so like hard sugar on a stick, and they come in various different shapes and sizes. So here we see this one. It's more of a classic lollipop. It's shaped like a circle. This one here, it's more like a rod or a cylinder, or maybe a spiral. And then this one here, it almost kind of looks like an ice cream cone. Very interesting. So I really wonder how far back these little guys, these lollipops, go in history. Well, some experts believe that the earliest form of a lollipop comes from cavemen who collected honey with sticks. So here we see a painting of some cavemen, some people from really, really long time ago, coming out of the cave. There's maybe dad and mom and grandpa and the son. I'm not sure. Yeah. Some people say that lollipops started with cavemen. I thought this was very interesting. So the lollipops that they ate then, it's not the lollipops that we know today, of course, with all of the artificial colors that you add in the factory. Back then, the cavemen would collect honey from bees with a stick, and then they would just eat it off of the stick, just like that. So actually, some people still enjoy it today, so it's very interesting. To avoid waste, they would lick off the residue from the sticks. According to archaeologists, ancient Egyptians, Arabs, and Chinese preserved fruits and nuts with honey. So the cavemen, back then, it's pretty hard to get food and things that you need. They don't have a refrigerator. They don't have a market in their neighborhood where you can just buy fruits and vegetables and meat. Back in the day, you had to go and find your food just in nature. Really stressful, I think. So it looks like this guy here, he's going out hunting, maybe for some meat, maybe for a lollipop. We can't know for sure. But yeah, back then, you don't want to waste food because it's really difficult to get. You have to go and kill the lion or pick the grass yourself. Maybe the water is super far away. So when you have the food, you want to eat it all. You don't want to leave anything wasted. So what they would do is they would lick the residue or the little bits of sticky stuff that stays on the stick from the sticks. So according to archaeologists or people who study the ancient past, ancient Egyptians, Arabs, and Chinese preserved fruits and nuts with honey. So I used to really like studying about ancient Egypt. And one thing that I learned when I studied it is that actually honey, it's almost impossible to go bad or get rotten. This is what I've heard, at least. So honey, it's really interesting because it's made in nature by bees, right? But it kind of acts like a protective layer for anything that's inside of it, so it doesn't go bad or make you sick when you eat it. So the Egyptians, the Arabs, and the Chinese would preserve fruit and nuts. They would keep them fresh and safe to eat using honey. Because, of course, if we think back then, fresh fruit. If you live in the desert, if you're living, I don't know, next to the pyramids in Egypt, it is pretty difficult to get fresh fruits and nuts. So they would just put it in the honey, take it to where it needs to go, and then eat it there. It's a pretty smart idea, I think. So here we see some ancient Egyptians, some hieroglyphics about them eating honey, perhaps. So this is a picture of some candy that you can still find in China today, maybe in certain parts of Korea too, I'm not sure. It's called tanghulu. Anyway, the products resembled candy treats and were eaten with sticks. So we just said the Egyptians, the Arabs, and the Chinese, they would preserve or protect fruit with honey, right? And then they would put it on a stick because, have you ever eaten honey? It's really sticky, it gets all over your hands, it's gross. Back then they didn't have laundry machines. So if you can avoid getting sticky, nasty honey all over your hands, you would do it too. So what they would do, they would put the fruit and the nuts in the honey, and they would put it on a stick, just like this, and eat it like that. And if you ever get the chance to travel to China, I recommend that you try tanghulu. It's pretty tasty. Okay, so we keep talking about these honey and fruit and nuts, but that's not quite exactly like the lollipops that we know today, right? So when did that start? During the 17th century, street vendors in London began selling boiled sugar treats called lollipops. So, it's almost exactly the same, right? So probably the lollipops that we know today are pretty similar to the ones that started in London in the 17th century. So in Seoul, you can see a lot of street vendors too, but also in London, if you go, there are people selling, hamburgers, hot dogs, all kinds of things. And then in this case, I guess they even sold lollipops. According to linguists, lolly means tongue, while pop means slap. Unlike the modern lollipop, lollipops were soft rather than hard. So back then, when they were selling these lollipops on the streets of London, it's not exactly like the ones that we know today, because if you bite into a lollipop now, it's hard, right? It can hurt your teeth. But back then, the lollipops were actually soft, so you could bite into it and it wasn't a big problem. So where did this word lollipop come from? Actually, when you think about it, it's kind of a weird word, right? What does it mean? So according to linguists, or people who study language, the formation of language and the history of language, they say that lolly means tongue. And I guess if you think about it, it kind of makes sense, because when you say the word lolly, you have to use your tongue a lot, right? So I guess it could make sense that lolly means tongue. And then pop means slap. So in English, a slap is kind of like, right? So if you use your tongue to slap the candy, I guess that's why they call it a lollipop. Very interesting. Various companies claim to have created today's lollipop around the 20th century. So the 20th century was the 1900s, right? So there are a lot of companies, they say, oh, we were the first ones to make lollipops. We know that's probably not true because, look at this guy. He's back in the 1600s selling lollipops. I doubt that any of those companies are still around, but a lot of them say, perhaps not truthfully, that they are the inventors of the modern lollipop that we know and love today. So here you can see an advertisement, I think from the US in probably the 1950s or 60s. So these look pretty good, right? However, many historians credit American candy maker George Smith for making the first modern lollipop in 1908. He would later patent and coin its name in 1931. So, a lot of historians, or people who study history in the past, they credit this man right here. They say it's all because of him, because his name is George Smith, and he patented the lollipop and also coined its name. So, if you invent something, usually you can submit something to the government and say, this is my design, and I own it, and if someone else wants to use my intellectual property or make it the same thing as me, then they have to pay me money. So this is supposed to protect the ideas of inventors and make people want to keep inventing things. So historians say that technically, because this guy, George Smith, he patented the lollipop and he coined its name, which means he popularized the phrase lollipop as a way to call this kind of candy. They said that he did this in 1931. But I don't know. Look at this guy's face. Does he look happy to you? I mean, look at this happy, colorful, bright lollipop, and then you see this guy. He looks sad. I mean, remember, back then, they didn't have cameras, right? So they would have to spend weeks or months painting these kind of portraits. And people, I mean, if you're only gonna get one picture of you taken in your whole life, you wanna look your best, right? So I'm curious why he chose to look so sad in his one portrait. I guess we'll never know. But anyway, this guy, George Smith, he patented the lollipop first, so he gets all the credit and the fame. All right, so today we learned some interesting stuff about some candy that we all know and love. So let's read through the article just one more time, all at once. A lollipop is a popular type of hard candy on a stick that is enjoyed by sucking or licking. They come in various shapes and flavors. Some experts believe that the earliest form of a lollipop comes from cavemen who collected honey with sticks. To avoid waste, they would lick the residue from the sticks. According to archaeologists, ancient Egyptians, Arabs, and Chinese preserved fruits and nuts with honey. The products resembled candied treats and were eaten with sticks. During the 17th century, street vendors in London began selling boiled sugar treats called lollipops. According to linguists, lolly means tongue, while pop means slap. Unlike the modern lollipop, lollipops were soft rather than hard. Various companies claim to have created today's lollipop around the 20th century. However, many historians credit American candy maker George Smith for making the first modern lollipop in 1908. He would later patent and coin its name in 1931. Okay, well, that is all for today, for this week. I hope that you guys learned a lot about lollipops and patents and all that fun stuff. So I had a really great time making this video, so I hope you had a good time watching it. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, make sure to let us know in the comments section below. And also don't forget to subscribe to the Taimscorer YouTube channel. All right, see you guys next week. Bye.